Now, if we look inside a eukaryotic cell, we see that it's a really busy place. There's so many things going on because there's lots of organelles. There's little subcompartments of eukaryotic cells which do different things. And we can think of one eukaryotic cell as a bit like a city with all the organelles in it which have a different function. So if we have a city here and we think our cell is like a city, we can think about the different organelles. So the first organelle I have right here, this is the nucleus. So this is really, in terms of a city, this is the control center of the city. If we're thinking of jobs in the city, this would be like the mayor. This has got the instructions to keep the city running, and it's a vital part of the city. It's got the DNA in it in terms of a cell. And over here we've got a animal cell, and we can see that it's got a nucleus in it. And we've also got a plant cell down here, and we can see that the plant cell has a nucleus in it. So that's the control center of the cell. And if we think of it as a city, the control center of the city. Now, eukaryotic cells, they also have a plasma membrane. So this is a little bit of it, but a plasma membrane actually goes all around our cell, so all around our city. And the plasma membrane's a bit like the walls of the city. So it doesn't let everything in or everything out. It lets in just the right things and lets out just the right things. So some things are allowed into our cell or into our city, and some things are allowed to leave, but the plasma membrane, it controls what comes into and what leaves our cell. And of course, animal cells have this plasma membrane around here, and plant cells also do have a plasma membrane just around here. So it controls what goes into and out of the cell. Eukaryotic cells also have something here which is called a mitochondria. And this is really the power plant or the energy center of the cell. So mitochondria, so there's normally more than one of them in a cell, they produce the energy for the cell to do the things that it needs to do to stay alive. So animal cells have mitochondria, there's one, and plant cells also have mitochondria, and there is one there too. There's another one over here. So mitochondria, that's the powerhouse of the cell, provides the energy for the cell. The next organelle is actually only found in plant cells, and this is the chloroplast. So this is a bit like the food factory in a plant cell. It makes the food for a plant. So here's a chloroplast in a plant cell. So chloroplasts, they make food for the plant to grow and survive. So food factory, really important kind of for our city. And a chloroplast, which by photosynthesis creates food for plants. Another organelle, you can see them kind of all dropping down here. So these are our ribosomes. So I've got lots of ribosomes. These are kind of the workers in our city, or the little kind of, maybe the workers in our factories, because ribosomes make proteins in cells for both the cell to grow and function, but also they make proteins. Sometimes the cell excretes proteins to some other place. So, but they're the workers of the city. They make the proteins. Ribosomes make proteins, and proteins are a vitally important thing to keep a cell functioning and growing and alive. And so they're ribosomes. They're kind of the workers of our city, I suppose, making the proteins. The next thing we have here is an endoplasmic reticulum. So this is, in fact, this is a bit like our transport system inside the cell. So this is it here, but it's got all these kind of tubes and membranes in it, and proteins come here from ribosomes, or ribosomes make their proteins on it. If it's a rough endoplasmic reticulum, it's got ribosomes on it. So proteins are made right here. The endoplasmic reticulum then kind of packages up those proteins and sends them around the cell, and it actually does help kind of sometimes finish off the making of those proteins a little bit. So this is a bit like our internal transport system. It transports things around the cell. That's the endoplasmic reticulum. We also have another kind of transport mechanism, and that's the Golgi apparatus. But this can actually package proteins into little vesicles, into little balls, and those balls can bud off a Golgi apparatus, and they can actually sometimes leave the cell. So maybe one goes this way, and it can leave the cell. So a Golgi apparatus is also, it's a bit of a packaging and transport organelle, and so it packages proteins and sends them off around the cell or even outside of the cell. What we've got here now is this is a lysosome. So this is a bit like our waste management plant or our recycling facility of our city, because a lysosome basically digests or breaks down the waste products within the cell. So all the wastes go to the lysosome, it stores them inside it, and then there's these digestive enzymes inside the lysosome, and that breaks the material down so it's of no harm to the cell, and sometimes even recycles it, or kind of gets rid of it outside of the cell. So the lysosome is our recycling facility. And the last component of the cell here is a big vacuole. So plant cells have these large vacuoles. So in plants, they're filled with a bit of water, but sap and things like that. So it's a bit of a storage system. So it's a big storage shed in our city. And plants also use these large vacuoles here to provide a little bit of support and stability and provide the plant cell with some shape. But really, when we think of our city, the large vacuole here, it's the storage shed. So that's all about the different organelles of a cell, and we can see how the different organelles do different jobs to keep the cell running. And we can think of those as a little bit like keeping a city running, because a cell is so complicated.